My name is Mike, and I'm 32 years old now, but this story happened back when I was 19. My family had just moved into a new house. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was bigger than our old apartment, and my parents were thrilled to finally have some space. We were in one of those quiet, suburban neighborhoods where people wave when you drive by and kids are always out riding their bikes. For the first few weeks, everything was completely normal. Then we started hearing it. It was a soft, dragging sound, coming from just above the ceiling, like someone was slowly shifting their weight in the attic. We tried to ignore it, telling ourselves it was just the house settling, the way old wood creaks and groans. We kept telling ourselves that right up until we checked the attic hatch and saw the screws were gone. My bedroom was on the second floor, right near a little hallway closet, and in the ceiling of that closet was the hatch that led up into the attic. At first, the attic was just background noise, a part of the house we never thought about. Then one night, around 1 in the morning, I woke up to a faint sound. It wasn't a loud bang or a creak. It was a slow, careful scrape, like the sound of a cardboard box being dragged across a wooden floor, or maybe a shoe sole dragging on raw timber. I lay there in the dark, holding my breath, just listening. It happened again, a scrape, and then a soft thump, like the sound of someone kneeling down. I sat bolt upright in bed, staring at my ceiling. But there was nothing. No footsteps in the hallway outside my door, no voices from downstairs. The house was silent. I eventually convinced myself it had to be the HVAC system kicking on, or maybe a raccoon had gotten in. Some kind of random, explainable attic noise. And that was my mistake. Because when you explain something away too many times, you stop reacting when you really should. Over the next couple of weeks, it kept happening. Not every single night, but just often enough that I started to dread going to bed. Sometimes the sound was directly above my room. Other times it was above the hallway. Sometimes it sounded like it was moving slowly from one side of the house all the way to the other. I was starting to lose sleep over it, so I finally told my dad. He did what dads do. He let out a big sigh, told me I'd been watching too much scary stuff on the internet, and promised he'd check it out. The next day, he got a stepladder, set it up in the hallway closet, and pushed the attic hatch open. He climbed halfway up, shined a big flashlight around the darkness, and after a minute, he said it looked fine. Just a bunch of insulation, dust, and a few old boxes left behind by the previous owners. He pulled the hatch back down and said, "See? Nothing to worry about." I really tried to believe him. I wanted to believe him. But that night, it happened again. Only this time, it sounded closer. Not at the far end of the house, but directly above the hallway closet, right over the hatch itself. I slowly got out of bed and crept to my door, opening it just a crack. The hallway was completely dark, and that's when I noticed something small, something tiny that made my skin go ice cold. The closet door was open by about an inch. We always kept that door shut. It was a cramped little closet, and my mom hated a cluttered-looking hallway. I just stood there, staring at that dark little gap. Then I heard a sound so soft it was barely there. A light tap, like something had gently touched the attic hatch from above. I didn't even think. I just backed into my room and locked the door, which I know is stupid, because those little bedroom door locks aren't real locks. They won't stop anyone. I grabbed my phone and texted my dad, even though I knew he was asleep just down the hall. I just wrote, "Can you come here? Now." He came out of his room a minute later, half asleep and clearly annoyed, until he saw the look on my face. I just put a finger to my lips and whispered, "Listen." We stood there together in the dark hallway, two people holding their breath, listening to the silence. And then we heard it, a slow, deliberate scrape right above us, followed by that same soft thump. I watched my dad's expression change. It was like his brain finally accepted what mine had been screaming at me for weeks. This wasn't the house settling. He reached over and flipped the hallway light on, flooding the space with bright, harsh light. He grabbed the ladder from the wall, opened the closet door all the way, and just stood there, staring up at the hatch. Then he noticed it. The screws that were supposed to hold the hatch frame tightly in place, they were missing on one side. He just looked at me and said, "That's not right." Because my dad was the one who had checked the attic just that morning, and he specifically remembered tightening those very screws himself when he was done. We went downstairs and woke my mom up. And then my dad did something that I will never, ever forget. He took the stepladder out to the garage. He came back a minute later with his big flashlight and a can of bright orange spray paint. He looked at us and said, "If someone's been up there, I want proof." He set the ladder up, opened the hatch again, But this time, he didn't climb up. He just aimed the flashlight into the darkness, held the can of spray paint up into the opening, and sprayed a short, bright orange line on the wooden support beam right near the edge of the hatch. Then he closed it. He said, "If anyone opens that again, they'll have to touch that beam." We all stayed up for another hour, just sitting in the living room with every single light on, pretending we weren't completely terrified. Around 3 a.m., the scraping sound started again. But this time, it was different. Because the moment we all went quiet to listen, the sound stopped. Instantly. It was like something up there was listening to us, too. That's when my dad called the police. Not 911. He called the non-emergency line because he didn't want to sound crazy reporting a noise. 2 officers came about 40 minutes later. They were polite, but I could tell they were expecting a simple animal in the attic situation. They opened the hatch, climbed up, and did a full search with their heavy-duty flashlights. They found nothing. No person, no sleeping bag, no obvious hiding spot among the insulation and boxes. But when the first officer climbed down, he paused on the ladder and looked straight at my dad. He said, "Sir, who sprayed this?" My dad's face went tight, because the bright orange line wasn't just on the beam anymore. There was a fresh, orange smear along the white edge of the hatch frame itself, like something had brushed against the wet paint, like someone had opened the hatch after my dad had marked it and then carefully closed it again. The officers got very serious then. They checked the attic vents from the outside. They checked the soffit under the roof. They walked the entire property line with their flashlights, searching for any sign of entry. And that's when one of them found it. The piece of the puzzle that made it all make a terrifying kind of sense. Behind our house, near the back fence, there was a section of decorative lattice that had been pulled loose from the foundation. It wasn't broken, it was carefully pulled loose and then set back in place, like someone wanted it to look normal. And right under it was a clear path worn into the grass, leading directly toward the side of the house, toward the area right under the attic. The police told us it was possible someone had been accessing our attic from the outside, probably through a vent or some other small opening, without ever having to enter the main part of our house, which is a horrifying thought. It means you can lock every single door and window and still not be alone. After that night, my parents installed heavy-duty soffit covers and motion-activated floodlights all around the house. We hired a contractor to go over every inch of the exterior and seal every possible access point, no matter how small. And after they did that, the scraping sound stopped. We never heard it again. But here's the part that still bothers me to this day. About a week later, my mom was out in the backyard and found one of our kitchen chairs sitting outside, near the back fence. It was the same chair my dad had used that first time to climb up and check the attic hatch. None of us had put it there, and it was facing the house, like someone had been standing on it, looking for a way back in. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to check your attics.